She wakes up in a $20 million penthouse, sheets tangled around her body, and Ethan Blake, standing inches away, eyes dark. "We broke the only rule," he says quietly. Olivia's breath catches because last night was supposed to be fake, just like their marriage. But nothing about the way he touched her felt fake. Hours earlier, she was just a broke waitress signing a contract to save her mom. No feelings. No crossing the line. No exceptions. Now his hand lingers on her wrist like he can't let go. And that's when she sees it. A file on his desk. Photos of her, taken weeks before they ever met. "You chose me before this, didn't you?" she whispers. And Ethan doesn't deny it. "We broke the only rule," he says. And somehow, that's the least shocking part of this morning. Olivia Carter's eyes snap open to a ceiling she doesn't recognize, smooth white panels stretching high above her, sunlight spilling through floor-to-ceiling glass that frames a Manhattan skyline worth millions, the kind of view she's only ever seen on postcards in a gas station rack off I-95. And for a second she forgets how to breathe because nothing about this place belongs to her. Not the silk sheets tangled around her legs. Not the quiet hum of climate control. Not the faint scent of expensive cologne lingering in the air. And definitely not the man standing a few feet away, watching her like he's been there long enough to memorize every detail of her waking up. Ethan Blake, the billionaire whose name shows up in headlines and business magazines. The man who offered her a deal she should have refused but couldn't. And now he's here, sleeves rolled to his forearms, tie gone, eyes darker than she remembers, steady and unreadable as if last night didn't change anything at all. Except it did. It changed everything. Because last night wasn't supposed to happen. Not like that. Not crossing lines they both agreed would never be crossed. Her heart starts pounding, loud enough she's sure he can hear it. And she pushes herself up slowly, clutching the edge of the sheet, as if that thin barrier can somehow put distance back between them. What happened?" she manages, her voice softer than she intends. But Ethan doesn't answer right away. He just studies her. That same controlled expression he wore the day he first made the offer. The day everything shifted, and the memory hits her all at once, sharp and clear. A cramped office with flickering fluorescent lights, overdue bills stacked on the desk, her phone buzzing with another reminder about the hospital deposit she couldn't afford. $80,000 standing between her mother and a surgery she desperately needed, and then him walking in. Like he didn't belong in that space at all. Tailored suit, calm confidence, the kind of presence that made everyone else in the room feel smaller. "Marry me," he said. No hesitation, no build-up, just those two words like it was the most logical thing in the world. And Olivia actually laughed because it sounded insane, completely out of place in her reality, until he slid the contract across the table. Clean white paper, precise numbers, 1 year, 5 public appearances, strict boundaries. $500,000, enough to solve every problem she had if she was willing to sign her name and play a role. No feelings, no personal involvement, no crossing the line. Those were the rules, clear and simple. Rules she repeated to herself the entire ride up to this penthouse. Rules she held on to during every event, every stage smile, every moment she stood beside him while cameras flashed and people whispered, convincing herself she was just acting, just surviving, just getting through. 1 year, but now sitting here in his bed with his eyes locked on hers. Those rules feel like something fragile that shattered overnight. "You said this was just business," she whispers, more to herself than to him. But Ethan steps closer, slow and deliberate, the space between them shrinking in a way that makes her pulse spike. "It was," he replies quietly, and there's something in his voice she hasn't heard before, something less controlled, more real, and that unsettles her more than anything else, because Ethan Blake isn't supposed to lose control. He's the man who calculates everything, who plans 10 steps ahead, who doesn't make mistakes. And yet here they are, standing in the aftermath of one. Olivia's gaze shifts, searching for anything that grounds her, anything that makes sense. And that's when she sees it, a sleek black folder left slightly open on the glass desk across the room. Something about it pulls her attention, a quiet instinct she can't ignore. She slides out of the bed before she can second-guess herself, ignoring the way Ethan's gaze follows her, and crosses the room, her fingers brushing the edge of the folder before she opens it. And the moment she does, the air, he could have said, Olivia lets out a short breath that almost turns into a laugh, but does not quite make it. Because nothing about this is funny. That is not an answer. She presses, stepping closer now, the distance between them closing, but feeling more dangerous than before. Was it weeks? Months? Before my mom got sick? Before I lost my apartment? Her questions come faster, stacking on top of each other, because now everything feels like it is unraveling. Every memory shifting under her feet, and Ethan holds her gaze, unflinching. Before, he admits, and that single word lands like a crack through everything she thought she understood. Olivia's grip tightens on the photo, her knuckles going pale. So none of this was random, she says. Quieter now, the realization settling in deeper. You already knew who I was when you walked into that office. Ethan does not deny it, and that is the part that hurts in a way she cannot immediately explain, not because he owes her anything, not because their arrangement was ever built on honesty, but because she had convinced herself she still had some control, that she chose this, that she stepped into his world on her own terms. But now it feels like she was pulled into it long before she even knew his name. Why? She finally asks, and this time there is no edge, no accusation, just confusion and something more vulnerable underneath, something she does not want him to see. Ethan's expression shifts almost imperceptibly, something softer flickering beneath the surface before it disappears again behind that familiar control. He takes a step closer, slow, measured, as if giving her time to move away if she wants to. But she does not. She stays exactly where she is, waiting. Because you were the only one who did not look at me like I was something to gain from, he says, his voice lower now, more honest than she has ever heard it. And Olivia blinks, caught off guard, because that is not the answer she expected, not even close. You do not even know me, she says, shaking her head slightly, trying to make sense of it. You saw me a few times, that does not mean anything. Ethan's lips press into a faint line, almost a smile, but not quite. I saw enough, he replies, and something about the way he says it makes her chest tighten, because it does not sound like a casual observation. It sounds like a decision he made a long time ago, one he has not questioned since. Olivia looks back down at the photos, flipping through them quickly now, each one another moment she thought was private. Another piece of her life she did not realize anyone else had witnessed. This is not normal, she says under her breath, more to herself than to him. This is not just business. And that is the truth she cannot ignore anymore, because a business deal does not involve this kind of attention, this kind of intention, this kind of quiet obsession that lingers beneath the surface. Ethan steps closer again, close enough now that she can feel the warmth of his presence without him even touching her. You are right, he says, and when she looks up at him, there is no trace of the detached billionaire she met weeks ago. No calculated distance. Just something real and unsettling in its honesty. It stopped being just business the moment you signed that contract. Olivia's breath catches, her heart beating faster for reasons she does not want to name, because this is exactly what she promised herself she would avoid. Feelings, complications, anything that blurred the line between real and fake, and yet here she is, standing in the middle of it, unsure which side she is even on anymore. You should have told me, she says. But the words come out softer than she intends, lacking the anger she thought she would feel, and Ethan nods slightly, as if he agrees, as if he knows he crossed a line that cannot be undone. I know, he says, and for the first time, there is something close to regret in his voice, not dramatic, not overwhelming, just quiet and undeniable. And that might be the most dangerous thing of all, because it makes this feel real in a way she cannot walk away from easily. Olivia swallows, forcing herself to hold on to the one thing she still understands, the contract, the rules, the boundaries that were supposed to keep everything simple. This does not change anything, she says, more firmly now, like she is trying to convince herself as much as him. We had an agreement. Ethan studies her for a long second, his expression unreadable again, the walls going back up piece by piece, but not completely, not the way they were before. Then why does it feel like it already has? He asks quietly, and Olivia does not have an answer for that, not one she is ready to say out loud, because deep down, she knows he is right. Something shifted last night, something neither of them planned, and now, there is no clear way back to where they started. Olivia turns away first because if she keeps looking at him like this, she might start believing him. And that is exactly what she cannot afford to do. Not now. Not after everything she just discovered. Her fingers still clutching the edge of the folder as she sets it back down on the glass desk with more care than she feels. Like controlling small movements might somehow steady everything else spinning inside her. "We have an event tonight," she says, her voice regaining that composed, almost distant tone she learned to use ever since stepping into his world. The tone that keeps things professional, controlled, safe, and Ethan watches her closely, as if he recognizes what she is doing. The shift, the walls going back up. And for a second something unreadable flickers in his expression before it disappears. "Yes," he replies simply, matching her tone now, but there is a weight behind it that lingers. A quiet understanding that whatever happened between them this morning has not been resolved, only pushed aside. And Olivia nods once, turning toward the window, drawing in a slow breath as she stares out over the city, the streets far below already alive with movement, yellow cabs threading through traffic, people rushing to places that feel grounded, normal, real, unlike the world she is standing in right now. A world built on contracts and control and decisions made long before she ever had a say. "Then we should act like nothing changed," she adds, almost more to herself than to him, because that is the only way she knows how to survive this, to treat it like every other role she has played since signing that paper. Ethan steps closer again, stopping just behind her. Not touching, but close enough that she can feel the shift in the air, the quiet tension that seems to follow him now. "Can you?" he asks, and the question is simple, but it lands heavier than anything else he has said, because Olivia knows he is not just asking about tonight. He is asking if she can pretend after everything she knows now, after everything that has already crossed the line between them. And she closes her eyes briefly, forcing herself to answer without hesitation. "Yes," she says, even though a part of her is not entirely sure that is true, because pretending was easy when this was just a deal, just numbers on paper and clear boundaries. But now there are too many unknowns, too many moments that felt real, too many answers she does not have, and Ethan studies her reflection in the glass, his gaze steady, searching, as if trying to decide whether to believe her, before he finally nods once, accepting it for now. "The car will be ready in an hour," he says, his voice returning fully to that composed, controlled tone she is used to. And then he turns and walks away, leaving her alone with the city stretching endlessly in front of her and the quiet echo of everything that just changed. The next hour passes in a blur of preparation, stylists moving efficiently around her, soft fabrics, precise adjustments. The transformation into someone who belongs in rooms filled with people who have never worried about rent or medical bills. Olivia watches herself in the mirror as the final touches are made. A sleek black gown, simple but elegant, the kind that does not try too hard but still demands attention. Her hair pulled back just enough to frame her face. And for a moment she barely recognizes the person staring back at her, because she looks like she fits into Ethan Blake's world, like she has always belonged there. And that illusion is both powerful and dangerous, because it is easy to forget where she came from when everything around her tells a different story. The car ride is quiet, the city lights blurring past the tinted windows as they head toward the venue, a towering hotel in Midtown where the entrance is already lined with cameras and flashing lights. And Olivia can feel the familiar tension settling into her shoulders, the performance about to begin again. She glances at Ethan beside her, his expression unreadable, composed as always, but now she notices the subtle things she missed before, the slight tightening of his jaw, the way his fingers tap once against his knee before going still, small signs that he is not as unaffected as he appears. And for a brief second she wonders if he is thinking about the same thing she is, about the morning, about the truth that now sits between them. But then the car slows, the noise outside growing louder, and the moment is gone, replaced by the reality of flashing cameras and watching eyes. The driver opens the door, and Ethan steps out first, immediately shifting into that version of himself the world knows. Confident, untouchable, every movement controlled. He turns and offers his hand, just like always, and Olivia hesitates for half a second before placing her hand in his, the contact sending a quiet, unexpected tension through her that was not there before. And as they step out together into the lights, she lifts her chin slightly, slipping back into the role she agreed to play. The perfect wife, the composed partner, the woman who belongs at his side, even if everything inside her is still trying to understand what that actually means now. Cameras flash. Voices call out his name, her name, questions she does not answer. And Ethan's hand tightens just slightly around hers, a subtle gesture that no one else would notice. But she does, and it feels less like control and more like something else entirely, something she is not ready to define. They move through the crowd, up the steps, into the grand ballroom where chandeliers cast soft light over polished floors and carefully arranged tables. Conversations pause as they enter, eyes turning toward them, measuring, judging, curious. And Olivia feels it all, the weight of attention, the unspoken questions, the silent comparisons. But she keeps walking, steady, composed, until a voice cuts through the room, sharp and familiar. Well, if it is not the perfect couple, and Olivia's stomach tightens as she turns slightly to see a woman stepping forward, elegant, poised, with a smile that does not quite reach her eyes, someone who clearly knows Ethan, someone who looks at Olivia like she does not belong here at all. And in that moment, Olivia realizes that whatever game she thought she was playing, it just became something much more complicated. Olivia feels the shift instantly, the way the air tightens around them as the woman steps closer, heels clicking softly against the polished floor, her presence cutting through the room with quiet authority, and Ethan's hand remains steady around Olivia's. But there is a subtle change in his posture, a tension that was not there seconds ago. "Victoria," he says, his tone controlled, neutral. But Olivia catches the slight pause before her name, the way it is not just any introduction, and Victoria's smile curves just a little sharper as her gaze slides over Olivia from head to toe, not openly rude, but precise, measuring. "I was wondering when you would finally make a public appearance together," she says, her voice smooth, practiced, the kind of tone that sounds polite but carries something underneath, something Olivia cannot ignore. And for a brief second Olivia considers stepping back, letting Ethan handle this, staying quiet like she has done before. But something inside her shifts. Maybe it is the morning. Maybe it is the truth she now carries. Or maybe it is the way Victoria is looking at her like she is temporary, replaceable, irrelevant. And Olivia lifts her chin slightly, tightening her hold on Ethan's hand just enough to signal that she is not stepping away. "It is nice to meet you," she says calmly, her voice steady despite the tension building around them. And Victoria's eyes flicker with mild surprise, just for a moment, before she recovers. "Oh, we have met," she replies, her smile not changing, "just not like this." And that is when Olivia understands. This is not just someone from Ethan's world. This is someone who used to stand exactly where she is now. And the realization settles in with a quiet weight. Ethan's grip on her hand tightens slightly, almost imperceptibly, but enough for her to notice. "Victoria is an old colleague," he says, the word carefully chosen. But it does not match the look Victoria gives him. Something more personal, more complicated. "Is that what we are calling it now?" Victoria asks lightly, her gaze shifting between them. And the room around them continues moving, conversations resuming. But there is a subtle awareness, a few glances lingering just a little too long. People sensing the tension even if they do not fully understand it. Olivia feels it all, the pressure, the expectation, the silent judgment. And for a second she remembers exactly where she came from. The diner, the long shifts, the way people used to look right past her, and something inside her steadies, because this is not so different, just dressed in better clothes. "We should not keep you," Olivia says before Ethan can respond, her tone polite but firm, taking control of the moment in a way that surprises even herself. And Victoria's gaze sharpens again, studying her more carefully now, as if reassessing something she had already decided. "You are right," Victoria replies after a brief pause, her smile returning. "But it feels different now, less dismissive, more curious." "Enjoy the evening," she adds, her eyes lingering on Ethan for just a second longer before she turns and walks away, disappearing into the crowd as smoothly as she arrived. And the tension does not disappear with her. It lingers, quiet but undeniable. Olivia exhales slowly, only now realizing she had been holding her breath, and she turns slightly toward Ethan, lowering her voice just enough that only he can hear. Old colleague, she repeats, a hint of challenge in her tone, and Ethan glances at her, something almost like amusement flickering in his expression despite the situation. That is the simplest version, he replies, and Olivia raises an eyebrow slightly, because simple is clearly not the truth. Not here, not with anything connected to him. But before she can press further, another group approaches, conversations pulling them into the flow of the evening, introductions, polite exchanges, questions about their marriage, their plans, their future, all of it. Part of the role she agreed to play, and Olivia moves through it with practiced ease, smiling when expected, responding just enough without revealing anything real. But something has changed. She feels it in the way people look at her now, not just curiosity, but interest, the way word travels fast in rooms like this, and Victoria's reaction did not go unnoticed. If anything, it drew more attention. And Ethan stays close beside her through it all, his presence steady, controlled. But there are moments, brief and fleeting, where their eyes meet and something unspoken passes between them, something that has nothing to do with the performance, nothing to do with the contract, and everything to do with what happened between them before they stepped into this room. And Olivia feels it every time, a quiet pull she cannot ignore no matter how much she tells herself to stay focused, to stay detached, to remember why she is here. But then, as the evening begins to settle into a rhythm, a voice cuts through the soft hum of conversation, louder this time, deliberate. So tell us, Olivia. And she turns to see Victoria again, now standing with a small group of people, all eyes shifting toward her, expectant, curious. And there is something in Victoria's expression that makes Olivia's stomach tighten, something sharper than before. How does it feel? Victoria continues, her tone light, but her words precise. To go from waiting tables to living in a $20 million penthouse overnight, and just like that, the room stills around them, conversations fading, attention narrowing, the question hanging in the air not just as curiosity, but as a test, a challenge, a line drawn clearly between who Olivia was and who she is supposed to be now. And for a split second, Olivia feels it, the weight of it, the risk of everything unraveling right here in front of everyone. And then she slowly turns to face Victoria fully, her expression calm, composed, but her eyes sharper now. Because this is not just a question, this is a moment that will define how they all see her from here on out. Olivia does not look away, not this time, even as the room quiets, and every pair of eyes seems to lock onto her, waiting, judging, measuring the distance between who she used to be and who she is standing here as now. And for a brief second the memory flashes through her mind, the late nights at the diner, the smell of coffee and grease, the weight of exhaustion in her bones as she counted tips just to make sure she could cover another week of bills, and instead of shrinking from it, she lets it steady her, grounding her in something real, something no one in this room can take from her. She tilts her head slightly, her expression calm but her gaze unwavering as she meets Victoria's eyes directly. Honestly, she says, her voice clear, carrying just enough to reach the small circle gathered around them without needing to raise it. It feels exactly the same. There is a flicker of confusion across a few faces, the answer not what they expected, and Olivia lets a small, controlled smile form, not defensive, not apologetic, just certain. Because where I come from, you learn pretty quickly that the number in your bank account does not change who you are, it just changes how people treat you. A soft murmur moves through the group, subtle but undeniable, and Olivia does not stop there. She shifts her gaze briefly to the others before returning it to Victoria. And I have learned a lot in the past few weeks, she continues, her tone still composed. But there is an edge now, something stronger beneath the surface, mostly about how easy it is for people to assume things based on what they see. Victoria's smile tightens almost imperceptibly, and Olivia knows she has struck something, not a direct hit, but enough to shift the balance of the conversation. So to answer your question, Olivia adds, her voice softening just slightly, not out of weakness, but intention, it does not feel like I stepped into a different life. It feels like I am still the same person, just standing in a different room. Silence follows for a brief second. Then someone lets out a quiet laugh. Another nods in agreement. And just like that, the tension begins to ease. Not completely gone, but redirected, reshaped, and Olivia can feel it. The shift in perception, subtle but real. Victoria studies her for a moment longer, her expression unreadable now, the earlier confidence replaced by something more cautious, more calculating. And then she inclines her head slightly, a gesture that could pass as polite acknowledgement but carries something deeper, something closer to respect. Well said, she replies, her tone still smooth but lacking the earlier sharpness. And with that, the moment breaks. Conversations resume. The group disperses slowly, attention drifting back to safer topics. But Olivia knows this is not over. Not really, because in rooms like this, nothing ever is. Ethan has been silent beside her the entire time, but now she feels his gaze on her, steady, focused, and when she turns slightly toward him, there is something different in his expression, not just approval, not just satisfaction at how she handled the situation, but something deeper, something more personal. And that unsettles her in a way she cannot fully explain, because this is not part of the arrangement. This is not something they agreed to. You handled that well, he says quietly, his voice low enough that it does not carry beyond them. And Olivia lets out a small breath, the adrenaline from the moment still lingering beneath her calm exterior. I have had practice, she replies, her tone light, but her eyes holding his for just a second longer than necessary. And something passes between them again, unspoken but undeniable, a tension that has nothing to do with the room or the people in it, and everything to do with the space between them. Ethan's gaze lingers, as if he is about to say something more, something that goes beyond the surface, but before he can, another guest approaches, pulling him into conversation, and Olivia steps slightly to the side, giving him space, slipping back into the role expected of her. But her mind is not as steady as she appears, because the morning, the photos, the truth he admitted to, it is all still there, just beneath the surface. And now layered on top of that is something new, something she did not anticipate. The way he looked at her just now, the way his voice changed when he spoke to her, the way his control seems to slip in small, almost invisible ways whenever they are alone. And Olivia turns her gaze toward the crowd, scanning the room as if grounding herself in something external. But then she sees it, across the ballroom. Victoria again, watching, not openly, not enough for others to notice, but enough for Olivia to catch it. And there is something in that look that sends a quiet warning through her, not immediate, not obvious, but present, like a storm forming just beyond the horizon. And Olivia realizes that. Whatever line she crossed tonight, whatever impression she made, it did not just change how people see her, it also changed how they will treat her moving forward. And in a world like this, that can be far more dangerous than being ignored, she straightens slightly, lifting her chin as she turns back toward Ethan, ready to continue playing the role she signed up for. But now with a clearer understanding that this is no longer just about surviving 1 year. It is about navigating something far more complicated, something that is already beginning to blur the lines she thought she could control. And somewhere deep down, a quiet thought forms, one she does not fully allow herself to face yet. That maybe the most dangerous part of all is not the people in this room, but the man standing beside her, and the way she is starting to see him differently than she ever intended. The rest of the evening moves forward, but something invisible has shifted, and Olivia feels it in every glance that lingers a second too long, in every conversation that suddenly feels less casual and more intentional. Like people are no longer just meeting Ethan Blake's wife. They are trying to figure out who she really is and whether she belongs in a world that was never meant for her. And she plays her part flawlessly, responding with calm confidence, offering just enough without giving anything real away. But beneath it all, her thoughts keep circling back to the same thing. The photos, the truth he admitted, the quiet intensity in his voice when he said it stopped being just business. And that thought follows her even as the night begins to wind down, as guests start to leave and the ballroom slowly empties. The energy shifting from sharp and watchful to something softer, more relaxed, and when they finally step out of the hotel, the cool night air hits her skin like a reset, a moment of clarity after hours of controlled performance. The city hums around them, distant traffic, muted voices, the glow of streetlights reflecting off glass and steel, and for a second, neither of them speaks, the silence stretching between them in a way that feels different now, not uncomfortable, but charged with everything they have not said. The driver opens the car door, but Ethan does not move right away. Instead, he turns slightly toward her, his gaze steady, searching in that same quiet way that has been unsettling her all night. "You surprised them," he says finally, his voice low, almost thoughtful, and Olivia lets out a small breath, looking ahead instead of at him. "Because it is easier that way. I am getting used to that," she replies, her tone light, but there is a truth beneath it she cannot ignore. She is changing, adapting, learning how to stand in spaces that once felt impossible. And that realization both empowers and unsettles her, because it means she is no longer the same person who signed that contract. Ethan studies her for a moment longer before opening the car door himself, stepping aside slightly in a gesture that is both expected and somehow more personal now. And Olivia slips into the car, the quiet interior wrapping around her as she leans back against the seat, the tension from the night slowly settling into something heavier, something harder to ignore now that there are no eyes on them. Ethan follows, the door closing behind him with a soft click, sealing them into a space that suddenly feels too small, too close. And for a moment they sit in silence again as the car begins to move, the city lights passing by in blurred streaks through the window, and Olivia can feel his presence beside her, not just physically, but in the way her awareness sharpens. Finally, breaking the silence, her voice calm but carrying an edge that was not there before, and Ethan does not immediately respond, his gaze still forward, his posture composed, but she notices the slight shift in his shoulders, the subtle tension that gives him away. "Victoria does not need warning," he replies after a moment, and Olivia turns her head slightly, studying him now. "That does not sound like someone who is just a colleague," she presses, and this time Ethan lets out a quiet breath, almost like a reluctant acknowledgement. "She was more than that," he admits, his tone measured, controlled, but there is something beneath it, something unresolved, and Olivia feels a flicker of something she does not want to name, something sharp and unfamiliar, and she looks away again, focusing on the passing lights outside, because this is exactly what she wanted to avoid: complications, emotions that have no place in an arrangement like theirs. She asks, her voice quieter now, and Ethan turns his head slightly toward her, his gaze steady. "That ended a long time ago," he says, and the certainty in his voice should be enough, but it is not completely, because Olivia has already learned that there are things about him that are not as simple as they seem, and the silence returns again, heavier this time, filled with questions neither of them is ready to fully answer. The car slows as they approach the penthouse building, the familiar structure rising above them, lights glowing against the night sky, and as they step out, Olivia feels the weight of everything settling back in. The morning, the photos, the gala, the conversation in the car, all of it layering into something she can no longer ignore. They move through the lobby in quiet coordination, up the private elevator, the soft hum filling the space as the doors close. And for a moment it is just the two of them again, no audience, no expectations, just the truth sitting between them. And Olivia watches the numbers change on the panel, each floor bringing them closer to a place that no longer feels as simple as it did before, because this is not just where she is staying anymore. This is where everything is starting to unravel. The doors slide open, and she steps out first, moving into the penthouse with a steadiness she forces into her steps, but she does not go far before stopping, turning back to face him, because she cannot carry this alone anymore, not without understanding where she stands. "We need to talk about this," she says, her voice firm now. No hesitation, no deflection. And Ethan pauses just inside the doorway, his gaze locking onto hers, the air between them tightening again, that same quiet tension returning, but stronger now, undeniable. "About what?" he asks, even though they both know exactly what she means, and Olivia takes a small step closer, her eyes steady, her voice clear. "About why you chose me," she says, and this time, there is no room for him to avoid the answer. Olivia does not look away this time, even as the question settles heavily between them, because she knows that whatever he says next will change everything, not just the arrangement, not just the fragile balance they have been pretending to maintain, but the way she sees him, the way she sees herself in this world. And Ethan stands still for a moment, his hand resting lightly against the back of a chair, his posture composed but not untouched. Not distant the way it used to be, there is something in his eyes now, something closer to hesitation, and that alone tells her this is not a simple answer. Because you did not need me, he says finally, his voice quiet but steady, and Olivia blinks, caught off guard by the response, because that is not what she expected, not even close. That does not make sense, she says, her brows drawing together slightly, her tone firm but not defensive, and Ethan exhales slowly, as if choosing his words carefully, as if this is something he has not said out loud before. Everyone I meet either wants something from me or pretends they do not. He continues, his gaze locking onto hers, unflinching. But you did not even notice me. And that lands differently, sharper than she expects, because it is true. She remembers those early moments now. The diner, the way he sat in the corner booth more than once, quiet, observant, just another customer in a place where she barely had time to look up, let alone recognize someone like him. So you followed me, she says, not accusing, just stating the reality of it, trying to understand how that leads to this, to a contract, to a marriage, to everything that has happened since, and Ethan nods once, no denial, no attempt to soften it. I wanted to see if it was real, he admits, and Olivia feels something tighten in her chest, because that sounds less like curiosity and more like something deeper, something that has been building long before she realized it. And was it? She asks, her voice quieter now, because she is not sure she wants the answer but needs it anyway. Ethan steps closer, closing the space between them in a way that feels deliberate, intentional, but not overwhelming, just enough that she can feel his presence fully now. Yes, he says simply, and the certainty in his voice makes it impossible to dismiss, impossible to brush aside as anything other than. Toward the window, the city stretching out below her, lights blinking in the distance, people living lives that feel simpler, clearer, and she rests her hand lightly against the glass, grounding herself in something solid, something real. Do you have any idea what this looks like from my side? She asks after a moment, her voice steady but carrying a weight he cannot ignore, and Ethan does not answer right away. But she can feel his attention on her, waiting. It looks like I never had a choice, she continues, turning back to face him, her eyes sharp now, not angry, but clear, like you decided who I was before I even got the chance to decide for myself. The words hang in the air, and for the first time, Ethan's expression shifts in a way she has not seen before, something closer to realization, something that suggests he had not fully considered that perspective. That was not my intention, he says. But even as he says it, he knows it is not enough. Intentions do not erase actions, and Olivia lets out a quiet breath, shaking her head slightly. It does not matter what your intention was, she replies, softer now, but no less certain. It matters what you did. And the silence that follows is different from before, heavier, more grounded in something real, something that cannot be brushed aside or redefined. Ethan steps forward again, slower this time, more careful, as if he understands that one wrong move could push her further away. Then tell me what you want, he says, and there is something in his voice now that she has not heard before, not control, not expectation, but something closer to vulnerability, and Olivia feels it, the shift, the moment where everything could change depending on what she says next. But that is the problem. She does not know, not completely, because what she wants now is not the same as what she wanted when she signed that contract. And that realization is the most unsettling part of all. She meets his gaze, holding it, searching for something she can trust, something she can hold on to. I want the truth, she says finally, her voice steady, unwavering. All of it. And Ethan does not look away this time, does not hesitate. Because whatever comes next, there is no going back to pretending this is anything less than real. Olivia holds his gaze, refusing to look away now that she has asked for everything, because she knows that whatever he says next will either ground this in truth or break whatever fragile trust has started to form between them. And Ethan exhales slowly, the sound quiet in the vast space of the penthouse. His usual control still present, but thinner now, like something real is pressing through it. The first time I saw you, you were arguing with a customer. He begins, his voice steady but lower. more personal than before, and Olivia's brow furrows slightly, caught off guard again, because that is not where she expected this to start. He was trying to leave without paying. Ethan continues, stepping a little closer, not enough to crowd her, just enough to keep her attention. And you stood there, exhausted, clearly at the end of your shift, and you still refused to let him walk out. And Olivia remembers it now, vaguely. A long night, her feet aching, frustration building, but she had not backed down, not because it was her job, but because it felt wrong to let it happen. That is not exactly rare, she says quietly, trying to downplay it. But Ethan shakes his head slightly, his gaze focused. It is, he replies. Most people would have let it go, especially for something small, but you did not. And something in the way he says it makes her chest tighten just a little, because he is not just describing the moment, he is describing what it meant to him. So you watched me. Because of that? She asks, her tone softer now, less guarded than before, and Ethan nods once, not embarrassed, not defensive, just honest. At first, he admits. I thought it was just a moment, something situational, but then I saw you again, and it was always the same. Olivia shifts slightly, her arms crossing loosely, not in defense but in thought. The same how? She asks. And Ethan's expression softens just enough to show that he has thought about this more than he probably should have. You treated people the same way, whether they had money or not, whether they were polite or not, he says, his voice even but carrying weight. You did not change based on what you could gain. And that lands deeper than she expects, because she has never thought of it that way, never considered that something so ordinary could stand out in a world like his. And that made you decide to offer me a contract. She presses, still trying to connect the dots, still trying to understand how something so simple led to something so complicated. Ethan pauses for a moment, his gaze dropping, briefly before returning to hers. No, he says, and there is something different in his tone now, something more serious, more deliberate. That made me decide I wanted you in my life. And the words hang there, heavier than anything he has said so far. And Olivia feels her breath catch slightly, because that is not part of any agreement, not part of any deal. That is something else entirely, something she is not prepared for. The contract came later. Ethan continues, as if he knows she needs more than just that. I needed a reason that made sense, something practical, something that would not scare you away. And Olivia lets out a small, disbelieving breath, shaking her head slightly, because that almost makes it worse, not better. So you built a situation where I would say yes, she says, her voice quiet but clear, and Ethan does not argue with that, does not try to reframe it. Yes, he admits. And the honesty in that single word is both grounding and unsettling at the same time, because it confirms everything she feared while also stripping away any illusion that this was accidental. Olivia turns away again, pacing a few steps across the room, her mind trying to process all of it, the intention, the planning, the way her life intersected with his long before she realized it. And she stops near the edge of the room, looking out over the city again, the lights steady, unchanged, unlike everything inside her right now. Do you understand how that feels? She asks after a moment, her voice quieter now, not sharp, not accusing, just honest. And Ethan does not answer immediately, but she can feel him step closer, stopping a few feet behind her, giving her space but not distance. It feels like I was not chosen. She continues, her gaze fixed on the skyline. It feels like I was arranged, and the distinction matters more than she expected, because one suggests something mutual, something real, and the other feels controlled, predetermined. And Ethan exhales slowly, the sound carrying something heavier this time, something closer to regret. I see that now, he says, and there is no defense in his voice, no attempt to justify what he did, just acknowledgement. And that, more than anything, makes her turn back toward him, because she expected resistance, explanation, something to push against. But instead she is met with honesty again, and that shifts something inside her in a way she cannot fully define. Then why tell me? She asks, her eyes searching his. Because he could have kept this hidden, could have let the contract remain what it appeared to be, simple, transactional, controlled. And Ethan meets her gaze without hesitation. Because it stopped being something I could hide from you. he says, his voice steady but carrying that same quiet intensity she has been feeling all day. And because you deserve to know the truth, even if it costs me everything. And that is the moment something breaks, not in a dramatic way, not loudly, but quietly, deeply, because Olivia can see it now, the difference between manipulation and something that has grown beyond it, something real that neither of them fully understands yet, and that realization leaves her standing there, caught between walking away from something that started wrong and staying in something that might be becoming something else entirely. Olivia does not speak right away because the truth he just gave her is still settling into something she can understand, something she can either accept or walk away from. And for a long moment, the only sound in the room is the quiet hum of the city beyond the glass, steady and distant, like a reminder that the world outside this penthouse continues without hesitation, without complication, while everything inside feels suspended, waiting for her to decide what happens next. She takes a slow breath, her fingers relaxing at her sides as she looks at him again, really looks at him now, not as the billionaire who offered her a contract, not as the man who controlled every detail of the arrangement, but as someone who made a decision long before she had the chance to understand it, someone who crossed lines he should not have crossed and is now standing in front of her without excuses, and that matters more than she expected. You said it might cost you everything, she says finally, her voice calm but carrying the weight of what he admitted, and Ethan nods once. No hesitation, no attempt to soften it. It will, he replies, and there is no doubt in his tone, just quiet certainty, and Olivia studies him for a moment longer, searching for anything that feels calculated, anything that suggests this is still part of some plan she cannot see. But all she finds is honesty, imperfect and complicated, but real, and that is what makes this harder, not easier, because it means the choice in front of her is not simple. It is not just about right or wrong. It is about what she is willing to risk. She turns slightly, walking a few steps away before stopping again, her thoughts moving faster now, connecting everything, the contract, the rules, the night they broke them, the way he has been looking at her ever since, the way she has been responding without meaning to, and she realizes something that shifts everything again. She is no longer just reacting to him. She is choosing how to move forward, and that realization steadies her in a way nothing else has. She turns back to him, her gaze clear, her posture more certain now. Then stop hiding behind the contract, she says, and the words land between them with quiet force, because they are not just a suggestion, they are a line being drawn. Ethan's expression changes slightly, not surprised, but attentive, like he understands the significance of what she is asking. If this is not just business anymore, she continues, taking a small step closer, closing the distance on her own terms this time, then do not treat it like it is. And for a moment neither of them moves, the air between them charged with everything that has led to this point, everything that could still fall apart if one of them pulls back. But Ethan does not pull back. Instead, he reaches into the inside pocket of his jacket, a small, deliberate movement that immediately draws her attention. And when he pulls out a folded document, Olivia recognizes it instantly. The contract, the same one she signed, the same one that defined everything between them. And her breath catches slightly as he looks at it for a second before meeting her eyes again. You are right, he says quietly, and then, without hesitation, he tears it in half, the sound sharp in the otherwise silent room, followed by another tear, and another, until the pages are nothing more than pieces in his hands. And Olivia watches, her heart racing in a way she cannot control, because this is not symbolic. This is real. This is him removing the one thing that kept everything between them clear and defined. And when he lets the pieces fall onto the table beside him, there is no taking it back, no returning to what they had before, no more rules, he says, his voice steady but carrying something deeper now, something that feels like a decision he has fully committed to. And Olivia stands there, looking at him, at the space where the contract used to exist, at the man who just chose uncertainty over control. And for a moment she does not know what to say, because this is exactly what she asked for. But it also means stepping into something far more unpredictable, something that cannot be managed with clear boundaries or simple expectations, something that requires trust. And that is the one thing she has been holding back. She takes a slow step forward, her eyes still locked on his, searching, measuring, but this time not for what he is hiding, but for what he is offering. And when she speaks, her voice is softer, but no less certain. "Then do not lie to me again," she says, and it is not a demand, not exactly. It is a condition, a boundary she is setting in a situation that no longer has any written ones. Ethan nods immediately, without hesitation, because he understands what that means, what it will require, and for the first time since this began, there is no contract between them, no defined roles, no safety net, just two people standing in the middle of something real, something they did not plan but cannot ignore. And as Olivia looks at him, really looks at him now, she realizes that whatever this becomes, it will not be simple, it will not be easy, but it will be theirs to define, not something decided in advance, not something controlled from the beginning. And that changes everything. Because now the question is no longer why he chose her, it is whether she is ready to choose him back.